Justin Trudeau, they have no place in ASEAN. Absolutely no. Canada has no place, Australia has no place, New Zealand has no place, even the United States has no place. ASEAN was created.
Pay ng magulang para sa mga batang manonood.
It touched human rights. It
Yes.
said, ready to combat transnational crime, including drug trafficking and people trafficking, with policies to protect citizens and respect and the respect for human rights. How are we to understand this?
Well, because that's one among his first duties. The United Nations was founded to stop crimes against humanity. Every time they have an anniversary, it's Auschwitz.
The Nations is prioritizing support for national and regional efforts to counter terrorism and to prevent violent extremism, including the establishment of a dedicated UN Office of Counterterrorism. We welcome the adoption of the Manila Declaration to counter the rise of radicalization and violent extremism and its recognition of the importance of comprehensive approaches and preventive action. The United Nations stands ready to provide technical support to ASEAN and its member countries in their efforts to counter terrorism and violent extremism and to combat transnational organized crime, including drug trafficking and people trafficking, through comprehensive policies designed to protect citizens with effective law enforcement and respect for human rights.
So that's really, he has to raise that. But I guess the first priority is counterterrorism because they just created the counterterrorist unit led by a Russian, so he needs to get that accepted by the world.
But when he mentioned human rights, was that in reference, would you say that was in reference, if any, to the Philippines or the President's war on drugs?
Well, I think right now it's overridden by the Philippines, of course, was very notable. I answered Agnes Calamard in the UN and the ICC president. The one thing I wanted to do, and I think it was appreciated, I said, let's define terms first. A crime against humanity is a crime against persons, especially large numbers of persons on account of their race, religion, political beliefs, none of which they can help. They are born with them. They are convictions. But drug dealing is a career choice.
It's not you're saying it's not a crime
It's not a crime against humanity. It's a career choice, and it's a fatal career choice in some cases. But in some cases it works. In Mexico, the career choice to be a drug dealer has created a narco state. Well, congratulations to them. But I made it clear when I spoke in the UN, it has been suggested by some people that we legalize this crime. Legalizing a crime does not make it any less a crime. That we minimize the scale of the drug problem, denying the size of the drug problem is no solution. I said, on top of which, even if it was, we will not live with drugs and the drug trade because it won't let us live.
So, plain and simple though, sir, when he mentioned human rights, would you categorically say, was it in reference to the campaign against illegal drugs or not?
That's included. There's no question.
Okay.
It's included.
But would you say just glossed over?
Not really glossed over. He has other concerns.
Yeah.
And then also, and you know, of anyone who had the right to speak there on human rights to ASEAN members, it's the United Nations alone who had the right to speak, because the United Nations is a regional organization. Every member of ASEAN is a member of the United Nations. He could have lectured specifically, and it would be correct. Justin Trudeau, they have no place in ASEAN. Absolutely no. Canada has no place, Australia has no place, New Zealand has no place, even the United States has no place. ASEAN was created precisely because of the failure of the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, which joined the Vietnam War and lost.
What was it called back then?
CETO. Southeast, in fact, I must add this because I'm really proud of the Vietnamese. When the Vietnamese military attaché goes to a great grand party, comes in this uniform, and he says, how do you do? I'm the country that beat three permanent members of the Security Council. France, the United States, and China. That's how they introduce themselves.
Well, you mentioned about Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I'm going to ask you your thoughts on him bringing up human rights, EJK, and the rule of law, and of course, the President's answer to that. Na-insulto si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte nang ungkatin ni Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau ang umano'y extrajudicial killing sa bansa sa pagpupulong nilang dalawa. Ayon po sa Pangulo, hindi siya natuwa ng banggitin ito ni Mr. Trudeau, bagay na taliwas sa sinabi ng Canadian Prime Minister sa kanyang press conference. Ayon kasi kay Prime Minister Trudeau, naging positibo ang pag-uusap nila ni Pangulong Duterte ukol sa umano'y mga EJK. Pero nang tanungin naman ng Pangulo ukol dito, sinabi niyang hinikayat niya si Mr. Trudeau na mag-imbestiga muna at tiyaking tama ang mga impormasyong natatanggap niya.
Explain. It is a personal and official insult. That is why you hear me throwing down epithets, curses, nagmumura, and everything. Because it angers me. When you are a foreigner, you do not know exactly what is happening in this country. You don't even investigate. You only show before the United Nations a record of how many persons died you claim to be extrajudicially. I said, I do not. I said, well, you can investigate. Find out. Look, guys, what I am really asking, and before, a lot, they were all there. I said, why don't you investigate first and find out the truth?
Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, saying he talked about EJK, rule of law, and the President said he was insulted by this.
He should be, because Canada was a guest. As I said, it's no part of this part of the world. It's very nice to know, though, that he is partly Malayan, Trudeau. But as I said, the UN could have brought it up, and whether you're angry or not, that was its duty. But it saw in the context of things that excessive police operations, call them brutal, like the city of New York, and or the Chicago police. Fine, that's one. But to put it all under crimes against humanity, as I said, drug dealing is a career choice.
So you don't think the Prime Minister should have?
That's right. No, he shouldn't have. Because he was a special guest. He didn't have to be invited. In fact, I don't know why he was. But there it is. But I know why. Because I would, let's face it, he is the most accomplished politician in the best sense of the word. He means everything he says and what he does. When he went to Tondo, that's not a show.
Really?
That's him.
Yeah.
I knew the father. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew of the father. Okay, he was very, very handsome. Handsomer than this boy. But aristocratic. Very distant.
Okay.
This boy really, talaga.
He has the appeal.
And he's got this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question.
Well, that obviously did not sit well with the president. But you were mentioning, of course, that if anyone can bring it up, you're saying it's to the United Nations.
Yes.
This is what I wanted to ask you. How can you describe now the relationship, if any, of the Philippines or the president with the United Nations, with the new SecGen taking over the post? I think in January?
That's right, yeah.
So almost 1 year now. Of course, we understand how it was back then with the old, the former SecGen,
That's right.
Ban Ki-moon.
Ban Ki-moon. He was a bureaucrat.
What kind of relationship are you seeing?
Well, I think the visit of Alan Cayetano was really good, because he would always, when we would meet with U.S. senators who were critical of the anti-drug campaign, and then when he met with Duterte, he kept bringing up EJKs. I said, do you mind? And he said, Tito, if you don't talk about EJK, which is the biggest elephant in the room, they will after you leave the room. And then they'll say, why complain? You never said anything about it. So, okay, he insisted on talking about it.
So
and
he confronted it.
Yeah, he confronted it. And in fact, Guterres, in one meeting, said, by the way, when he met with him on this drug thing, but I never legalized drugs in Portugal. I don't know who said that. He said, it's just that if you're a user, you go to the police and turn yourself in if you want rehab. If you don't want rehab, well, you can drop dead in the sidewalk. Now, pushing and dealing, he said, remain criminal.
It's a different,
it's different.
That's a different story. But the President Rodrigo Duterte, is now saying that maybe the country can host what is called a World Summit on Human Rights. Do you think
I think
that's
it's a good idea. Yes, I think clarification is a good idea as to what exactly are crimes against humanity. I think facing the drug threat, I think I gave the best report on the scale of the drug threat, and it came from the UN, unfiltered by me. They said we are in the main route of the drug trade.
Okay.
And the
Philippines.
Yes, and it is the main financial supporter of terrorism.
But
criminal insurgency?
But if you think it's a good idea, of course, Amnesty International is saying we don't have the moral authority to even host a summit on human rights.
Well, Amnesty International acts as if it has all the moral authority in the world to open its mouth. I remember Cory Aquino just took over the government. 3 months later, a military unit, well, shot up a village. And I really admire Doña Bea Zobel, who went to the palace and shouted at Cory. Said, "Do you look at her hand? The baby the hand had been shot off. She adopted that kid, by the way. Fine. Then Amnesty weighed in and condemned Cory. Hey, please, she just took over control of the government.
Yeah.
The army was proceeding as it did before, killing anything on sight, anything that moves. So, you know, they shouldn't talk about, suddenly they're humble.
So,
Oh, please.
so you think, obviously, that it's a
Let's
good
do
idea,
it, yeah. Because I don't like the Jews who were slaughtered, the Armenians, the Rwandans, thank you, France, and all the other victims of atrocities should be lumped up with drug dealers and drug pushers. Come on.
All right. One last item, because I saw a tweet of you regarding this, Sas Rogando confronting the BBC journalist. Of course, I ask you that because you've been a journalist for the longest time, sir. So
Yes.
was that right? Was that
Yes.
correct of Sas Rogando to confront the BBC journalist?
I think it is.
Why?
It is because it's her opinion, and she finds bias on the part of the BBC seeking out a small blogger, but maybe the small blogger is a Hemingway, writes really well, and you would notice it. But still, she has a right to bring up her concern. And what about my majority opinion? So I think it's correct. And then someone tweeted and said, yeah, but who does she represent? Well, one, who does the minor blogger represent? Themselves.
Yeah.
She is a citizen. She's a person. She has a right to confront. And second, and third, Noli de Castro, when it was, I really admire him for this, when it was proposed that killing journalists would be qualified murder. And he said, why? What's special about us? It's a job.
Yeah.
He said,
No
if they
different
shoot
than
us,
anything else.
they also shoot jeepney drivers. Yeah, no, I don't like, you know what is worse than the culture of impunity is the culture of self-congratulation of some members of media, but not all. I tell you that.
Well, all right. So when do you go back to New York?
Saturday.
Well, good luck. It's good to have you, and
Thank
good
you,
to see
thank
you.
you.
We wish you well, of
I
course.
always enjoyed being on this show. Yeah.
And I hope we have you back again. Are you going to spend Christmas here?
No, I
Okay,
just
you'll be
stay there.
spending. You will have a white Christmas. Ambassador, it's still Ambassador. Teddyboy Locsin Jr., always a pleasure. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Webb.
Thank you.
Ikaw ang pangulo para sa pagbabago. Sawa na ang bayan ko sa magnanakaw na tao.